Well, hello, Convention of States supporters, and welcome back to another episode of COS Live. My name is Andrew Woodruff. I'll be your host for this episode, and of course, I am joined by Rita Peters, who is the Senior Vice President of Legislative Affairs, but she's also my co-host, and she's my partner in crime. Rita, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Excited to be with everyone today.
I'm excited to be with everyone as well, and I'm excited to get to our agenda for this episode. We're going to have a quick news recap. We have exciting news, exciting victories that happened earlier this week. We're going to give our viewers the scoop. We also have an exclusive interview with the Convention of States State Director, John Quinn, in Oklahoma, and he's going to give us the scoop on the COS resolution that passed again in Oklahoma, but this time it was under the form of the Tom Coburn resolution. So he's going to tell us all about that. But before we get to those agenda items, of course, we have our Article 5 trivia giveaway with COS Vice President Mike Ruthenberg. Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Andrew. It's great to be here. It's going to be another great show. I know that you guys are going to have a fantastic visit with John Quinn, the Oklahoma State Director. And of course, I'm here to do our little trivia question to sharpen the minds of all of our great COS supporters who are here listening and watching and hoping to get the latest news and all the cool happenings, especially what's going on in Oklahoma and some legislation in the legacy of one of our great senior advisors. And I'm sure you guys are just itching to find out what that's going to be all about. But first, I want to share a little bit about the COS store. The COS store is up. We have our merchandise in the warehouse and it is shipping right away. So if you want a Hell No Joe shirt, if you want any other merchandise that's in the store, just go to shopconventionofstates.com, shopconventionofstates.com, and you can get something. It should ship out right away, and you'll really love the product. You'll love the quality. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give away this Hell No Joe t-shirt. We don't want Joe Biden or anybody in the federal government messing with our Second Amendment, and you can wear that shirt. And the shirts are such great conversation starters. Yesterday, I was in the natural food store wearing my COS shirt, a little bit different one. And the cashier engaged me, the bagger engaged me, had a great conversation. And that's one of the main reasons why we wear the COS stuff. Unfortunately, our hats aren't quite ready to go, but we've got shirts and you should go to the store and check it out. And the winner of this shirt today will have to answer our question of the day. And it revolves around the process of Article 5. Of course, what we're trying to do is to educate people on Article 5 and the process. And so we get to 34 states, let's say. We've passed the resolution 34. Of course, right now we have 15 states that we've passed the resolution in. We get to 34. And there is a convention. And we have a convention of states. The delegates or the commissioners that are assigned to this convention, wherever it winds up being, are unlimited in numbers. Each state will determine their own commission, their own number of people that will come representing that state. They'll talk, they'll argue, they'll hash out what's happening with amendments that they think not only will help save this nation, but will pass the bar of 38 states ratifying whatever amendment or amendments should come from this convention. Here's my question for you. The question is, how many votes are allowed in this convention to decide if this amendment is going to go out to ratification? How many votes? How many total votes can be cast on any given proposal that comes out of this convention? I'll be back later in the show to answer that question. Hopefully you're the one that gets it in there first. Hopefully you're already typing that answer in right now, a key component to keeping this safe and keeping it fair. There's your hint for the day. And I'll be back a little bit later. Back to you, Andrew. Can't wait to see what you're going to bring.
Thanks, Mike. Well, Convention of States has seen success. Really, we've been seeing success over the last few weeks, major victories legislatively, and we also have been seeing major victories in the media. Recently, Cal Thomas, who is a nationally renowned columnist, who is a syndicated columnist, he voiced his support for Convention of States. He's throwing support behind this movement because he's tired of seeing the abuses of power coming out of the federal government. Specifically, he's tired of executive fiat and the Biden administration's posture towards using executive orders. So he is calling now for the very first Article 5 Convention of States to limit the federal government. We also have had extreme legislative victories over the last few weeks. Rita is going to give us the scoop on some of the legislative victories we've seen this week. But before we get to that, we have a video that we want to show you with Mark Levin and Dave Rubin. They both sat down and they talked about Convention of States and the Article 5 movement. So check it out.
That must sort of make you feel validated in, oh, federalism does kind of work. And in a weird way, the crazier that Biden and the federal government gets, it actually is bringing some of the states back to the roots and back to the way it was supposed to be.
That's exactly right. And, you know, I'm one of the early advocates of Convention of States.
Mm-hmm.
This is a movement to use Article 5 of the Constitution, the Second Amendment process, to get our Constitution back. The Constitution has been amended over and over and over again through the back door, through court decisions, through legislation, through regulations. It's being shredded, and that would include the Bill of Rights and separation of powers. These are our protections. And so I've been saying, I wrote a whole book on it, the Liberty Amendments. Originally, I was against it. And then I said, wait a minute. As I study it more, the framers were for it. That's why it's in the Constitution. And the states signed off on it. That's why it's there. And so I've been arguing that we already live in a constitutional convention where the left controls what the Constitution says over and over again and is changing it. And I've heard some objections to it where people say, well, if you have a convention, anything can happen. They don't understand the process. No, anything can happen. It's like you have, first of all, you have to have 34 states sign off on it, legislatures. That's not easy. We have 14 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Then you need 38 states to ratify. So it's not like somebody's going to sneak something through or anything like that, or you can have a rump convention. And not only that, under the rules, as we've studied this, it has to be focused on a few issues. And the states send the state legislatures, not even the governor, send the delegates. And that fire alarm was there, and it was put there by George Mason 2 days before the end of the Constitutional Convention. He said, and I paraphrase but accurately, what do we do if Congress becomes oppressive? The only out for the states is a revolution. We've got to provide something. And so this was what was proposed, this state convention process. Madison was originally hostile to it, but then he embraced it. You know when he embraced it? He embraced it when states started to nullify laws. He embraced it when states were thinking of breaking off before they actually did. And he pointed to that. And he said, rather than destroy the Union, look at this. We have Article 5. You guys, we can get back together. It's just the states having a meeting. We can get back together, have a discussion on what it is we want to change, rather than burning down the whole republic. So in a letter in particular, he embraced what he had opposed as a way of trying to stave off the disintegration of the Union. So it's very important.
Rita, as our senior vice president of legislative affairs, tell us about what happened in the last week. Give us the hot headlines for Convention of States.
Well, actually, this week is an exciting week in our movement, Andrew. Just yesterday, we got word that the Kansas Senate Federal and State Affairs Committee advanced our resolution forward by a vote of 7-2. So, wow, they had already had the public hearing earlier, but yesterday they went into executive session and voted to recommend passage of the resolution by 7-2. So congratulations to the Convention of States Kansas team for their great and tireless efforts there. You'll also want to stay tuned this week even for news closer to my region of the country, because in North Carolina and South Carolina, we're looking for potential House floor votes on our Article 5 resolution, possibly this week. We're expecting this week in South Carolina, and it's also possible later in the week for North Carolina. So a lot going on this week. Everybody stay tuned and stay active.
We are pleased to welcome John Quinn, who is the State Director for Convention of States, Oklahoma. John, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing today?
Doing very well. I hope everybody else is too.
We are, and I want to start this interview by asking what's going on in Oklahoma. So a couple of weeks ago, we had some big news. Will you fill in for the viewers who might have missed what happened in Oklahoma for COS?
Well, Oklahoma was the 7th state back in 2016 to pass COS. But when we passed, we had a sunset clause like a few other states in the country right now. And last year, we had submitted an amendment to the resolution to remove that sunset clause. Flew through the Senate Rules Committee and the Senate floor vote, went to the House, and then COVID hit, and all the legislators were sent home, and it just defeated the whole effort. So it was the end of the second year session, so we began again this year and started from scratch, but just as quickly flew through the Rules Committee and the Senate vote, went to the House Committee, flew through there. We had a lot of great backers in the representation in both houses. Senator Standridge was the author of the bill. And then we got it passed inadvertently, sent it to the Senate or to the governor, which we did not require, but he approved it anyway. So now that's done. So now we no longer have any form of a sunset clause in the bill at all. And the bill was renamed in honor of Dr. Tom Coburn. It was called the Senator Dr. Tom Coburn Resolution of 2021.
I just love that. And I'm interested in hearing a little bit about your strategy in getting that sunset clause removed. As you mentioned, it's been about 5 years since Oklahoma passed its resolution for an Article 5 Convention of States to limit federal power, set term limits, and impose fiscal restraints. And I imagine that between then and now, there have been a lot of new legislators come in who weren't part of that original debate and ultimate vote to pass the resolution. So can you give us a little bit of a look behind the curtain? What was it like to get that done?
Well, in the Senate, of course, we still had our primary sponsors that were there. We did have a chairman on the Rules Committee and stuff, but there's been a very friendly rapport between our supporters and the new folks that came in, particularly in the House. There was a huge turnover in the last election, so we had a lot of unknowns, but the important people, the leader of the House floor, and Mark LePac, who is a representative. Mark actually ran for office because of Convention of States. He became aware of Convention of States right when he had retired. He was in private industry, and because of what Convention of States was doing nationwide, he decided that's what he wanted to do, was run for office and help support this. Was actually at the mock as a mock commissioner that was sent to the trial, Article 5 convention that they held out in Williamsburg. So that was one of his first experiences, and with their support and with the leaders' support, they were able to make sure that we communicated that to the new folks. Plus, in 2020, whenever we had first proposed the resolution again, I invited Mark Meckler out, and he and Patty came out, and Dr. Coburn was going to come too, but that was about the time that his health got to a point where he just couldn't travel anymore. And Mark came out and addressed about a third of our representation at that time, and that helped turn the tide too. He's an eloquent speaker and easily conveyed the messaging and helped educate our legislators here in Oklahoma.
And you mentioned just a few moments ago that the resolution was renamed to the United States Senator Dr. Tom Coburn Resolution of 2021. And as you know, and as many of the viewers know, unfortunately, Dr. Coburn passed away in March of last year. So I was wondering if you could just speak to his legacy just for a few moments and why this legislation was dedicated to him.
Well, I first met Dr. Coburn back in 2013 at a PAC meeting, actually. And of course, we know what the administration and Congress looked like at that time. I asked him, how was this allowed to go on, that nobody was challenging this? There was blatantly, on the face, unconstitutional activity going on. And he basically said, as long as they were in the minority and as long as they didn't have the White House, it was going to continue. And it was shortly after that, that he actually joined I think almost the same year, joined Convention of States and pursued it. And then of course, Dr. Coburn is a hometown hero in Oklahoma, and everybody respected him and what he represented in Washington, D.C. So anytime that he spoke up, Oklahoma were piqued and everybody paid attention. And just his involvement gave such visibility to the effort here in Oklahoma that I'm sure it was very key, very crucial in getting the measure passed here and keeping people aware of what was going on. That was the biggest challenge, was once we passed, then people think you're done, and you're so far from done. You've got to keep your eyes out for rescission efforts and things of that nature. And he was instrumental in that too. There was one put forward in 2017, I believe, and he found out about it. He knew the legislature, and he and Senator Standridge, who was the author of our bill, actually took the representative to breakfast and had a discussion, and he pulled his rescission effort. So you've got to constantly stay aware of that. But it just the fact that he missed out on last year, and the last time I got to see him was at the Leadership Summit in Williamsburg in 2019. And it just seemed a suitable tribute to do that. And of course, Senator Standridge was a good, close personal friend of Dr. Coburn's, and wrote the foreword in his latest book on breaking the DC monopoly. So we've still got that connection here, and his memory is strong in the state.
I feel so privileged to have had the opportunity to get to know Senator Coburn and work with him a little bit. He committed his entire career to defending liberty in this country. He was a staunch defender of freedom during his years in the U.S. House and Senate. And then he worked tirelessly through the final years of his life to join us in our effort to call an Article 5 Convention of States, because he, having served in Washington, D.C., was convinced that that is the only way to really get our country back on track and protect the freedom of Americans for generations to come. And have a couple of quotes from him that I just love. He said, "So the question for me is, for the rest of my life, will I work to secure the future for the next generation, and do that by promoting a convention of states to restore the fundamental freedoms that secure our liberty, that secure our future, and secure the next generation?" And then one of my all-time favorites, he said, "I believe this country can cheat history. This republic doesn't have to die. This republic can survive. This republic can achieve more than we have ever achieved before. So let's go do it." And John, as I'm sure you remember, anyone who knew Dr. Coburn knows that that was his attitude. That was his spirit. Let's go do it. Let's get to work and get it done. And he was the first one in line to do that work. I know whenever I traveled with him, even as he was sick and suffering, he wanted us to put him to work. He wanted to be busy the entire time he went into a state, meeting with people and doing everything he could to make a difference. And it was absolutely inspiring, is absolutely inspiring to me to this day. Now, John, I wonder if you could just share with our audience your personal story of how you found out about Convention of States, and why did you decide that it was time for you to put your life, your fortune, and your sacred honor on the line and volunteer for Convention of States?
Well, I'm a retired federal employee. I'd worked for the government for about 37 years and finally retired. But the year I retired, I got married, and she still had about 10 years to go. And I was working on the economy, and was pursuing that. Of course, at the same time, for about 12 years, I had been a political science professor at the university here in the city as an adjunct. And so I was always involved, always active in current events. And this position in Oklahoma came open. I hadn't even volunteered at that point for any other positions that were out there. But I became aware of it, and I had conversations with Rodney Huckleberry, and Rodney and I became very close friends, and still are. But I was coming up on the end of a contract, and I had decided that 37 years, and I'd put in another 8 years doing contract management work, and it was the 4th of July, actually, and I decided, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to go do COS, and I didn't want to do it part-time like I had teaching. So I wanted to do it the correct way and not just halfway. So I decided to retire full-time, gave up my job, and committed myself 100% to Convention of States because that was the level of effort that I wanted to put into it. And Rodney made that very easy and supported us. And we were very small at that time. I think when I'd gone through and looked at all the inactive volunteers that we had, our state was down below a dozen. And we had slowly grown back up to about 150 volunteers, and DCs and RCs and GRCs and all the volunteers that we have that make the magic happen. So they're the people that I lean on. Every week we'll have our statewide meeting tonight, but we have come back, full circle, and we're alive and strong, really getting things done in Oklahoma. We're active in supporting legislation in the state. We have an excellent rapport with our legislators here. They know us when we show up. Was emailing back and forth several times with a couple of them this morning. So it's a very close relationship, and that type of relationship building is crucial to getting things done, and we're giving you the attention and the trust that you need to push forward with these efforts.
Well, it's wonderful to hear that you are just building such strong relationships with the team there in Oklahoma and with the state legislators. It's really quite amazing and outstanding. But I want to ask you, we tend to, people who come on to this program, we usually ask them what their favorite amendment idea is, because as you know, our resolution covers 3 topics. It covers fiscal restraints, it covers term limits for elected officials, and then it also covers restraining or putting limitations on the overreach of the federal government. So in light of what's happened recently in Washington, is there an amendment idea that you like most that would fit within those 3 categories?
Oh man, that's a difficult question. Obviously, the 10th Amendment is probably the priority for what we're trying to do and maintain state rights. It's difficult when you talk about the issues that are going on right now in trying to resolve, the freedoms that we have, our Second, Fourth, and First Amendment rights are out there. Man, as far as which one that would be a favorite, golly, I don't know that if I could really nail it down to one, but it'd probably be somewhere between the first, the second, and the 10th. those are the only thing that protect us. When everything else fails, that's what we've got left to actually rely on, is our guarantees, our protections from the government itself. I don't think I've really ever thought about, have I got one in particular that's important to me. So I don't. I guess that's about the best I can do with that.
Well, John, before we let you go, I just want to personally and on behalf of the national team congratulate you and your team for getting the Dr. Tom Coburn resolution of 2021 passed and getting that sunset clause removed from the Convention of States resolution in Oklahoma, which for our viewers, that means that now that application in Oklahoma will remain valid indefinitely. And so that's good news for us as we move along on our quest to get to 34 applications and trigger a convention to rein in the federal government. So, John, before we let you go, what's next for Convention of States Oklahoma? And if we have viewers today who are in Oklahoma, what would you like to say to them and how can they help?
We have just, we were limited, like I said before, with the size of our team and the coverage of the state. We met last month and we divided the state into geographic regions. So now we actually have representation statewide. Every single House district, every voting district has coverage. So they have people to contact, people to actually be a part of. We're setting up monthly meetings in each region to keep these DCs active and to find out the level of activity. We're building that plan because without a plan, you're not going to accomplish much of anything unless you're just lucky. But putting these steps in place that will get people engaged, basically, give them an assignment, give them a job. We raise horses, and a horse without a job just becomes, sour and doesn't do anything. So we want to make sure everybody has a task, everybody has a responsibility, and they're held accountable for it so that they can come in and tell everyone else what they've done, what they've accomplished, and use those lessons learned and spread them across the state. And like I said, we're supporting a lot of legislation here in the state. We've got an active voter voice going on right now. We had one last month, and so far we're batting 1,000 on getting our legislation pressed through. So there's always areas for patriots in the state. Just get involved, press forward, stay involved, and if you've got a great idea, share it. And hopefully we can put it to use and for the betterment of the state and for convention of states.
Well, thank you so much, John, for joining us and for all the hard work that you and the team are doing in Oklahoma. And we hope to have you back sometime.
Be happy to. Thanks for everything you guys do.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to transition to Mike Ruthenberg, who has the answer to our Article 5 trivia giveaway.
Well, I hope you weren't disappointed by that great show that Andrew and Rita are doing. And now I'm back to give you the answer to the trivia question. Hopefully you're saying, I already know the answer to this question. And if you are joining us a little bit late, or you're not sure of what that question is, the question was, when we go to convention, if we get to 34 states, or I'm confident to say when we get to 34 states and we go to convention, then of course, all of the commissioners, the unlimited number, each state can choose how many commissioners are able to attend this convention representing their state. But the question is, how many votes can come out of that on any given proposal? And the answer is 50. And the reason for that is one state, one vote. That would encourage states such as Delaware, Maine, Vermont, some of the smaller states to compete with California, Florida, Illinois, New York, the states with the big populations. That way we can be sure that when we have 50% or 50 states or 51 states, 50 plus one, a simple majority that agree that this amendment that was proposed at the convention should go out to ratification in the states. And that's how it works. That's the answer to our question. Thanks for listening. And I hope it was you that gets this Hell No Joe shirt as part of your prize for getting that question and being first to it. If you didn't win, go to shopconventionofstates.com, shopconventionofstates.com, and you can order your own shirt right now. We have a bunch of them out there, and they're shipping right now. And looking forward to seeing everybody wearing their COS merch, and we'll see you next.
Thanks, Mike. Well, Rita, let's go ahead and sign off. We've had a packed program for this episode, but we have to get back to work. So the situation, I know it seems really unacceptable. Career politicians, they spend way too much time in Washington. They spend way too much of your money, and they want to control too much of your lives. But this situation that we are in, the founders knew that we might be here. And so they gave us a solution, and it's right there in the Constitution. You don't have to look very far. So at Convention of States, we are attempting to use the Constitution to save the Constitution through Article 5. If 34 states pass applications to call a Convention of States, we can use that to propose amendments that would limit the size, the scope, and the jurisdiction of the federal government. We're almost halfway there. 15 states have signed on board. We need 34. That's the magic number. Once we get to 34, we're going to send those career politicians packing. We're going to put you in charge. We're going to put we the people back in charge. So help us to make this a reality by signing the Convention of States petition. Go to www.conventionofstates and sign the petition. And then also get involved. Get involved with the local team. Go to the take action portion and become a community leader and help us to forward the cause of liberty so that we can change DC forever.
And I'm going to sign off with some reminders, Andrew. Don't forget, everyone, to follow us on all those social media platforms: Rumble, MeWe, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Parler, and Instagram. Also, we have new American-made apparel at our store. It's the conventionofstates.com/store. So check it out. You'll find something you really like there, I'm sure. Also, check out the battle cry with Convention of States President Mark Meckler. It's Sunday nights at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time. You don't want to miss that. And we'll see you back here next Tuesday at 6:00 p.m. Eastern Time for another edition of COS Live. For now, it's time for you and for me to get back to work because we have a country to save. And remember, if you're looking for the person who's going to restore the republic, look in a mirror. Now, today we're going to leave you with a video tribute to Dr. Tom Coburn. Thanks for watching.
Life's intended to be a battle. We're in to survive. We're in to compete. We're in to achieve. Giving up isn't in my nature, and it isn't in our nature. It isn't in our country's nature. It isn't in our children's nature. It isn't in ours, and it wasn't for sure in our parents. So, what are our options? I'm in this to the end, whenever that is. To save a country requires work, and it requires sacrifice. So it requires us to do things beyond what we would normally do. Americans are willing to sacrifice for a great cause. A great cause is our grandchildren. A great cause is liberty. A great cause is freedom. A great cause is working for the betterment of our society. And we do that best when we do that together as citizens. I don't care what the political class thinks. But it is unconscionable to me that when we spend their money, that we're wasting 15 to 20% of it all the time. And America doesn't trust you anymore. That's the truth. Because they don't see the actions coming out of Congress that should be coming out. And that's not one party, that's both.
I spent 10 years up here in the Senate and left early because I don't see a solution in the U.S. Senate and the U.S. Congress to fix what's wrong with our country. And if you look at history, all republics eventually fail over the same thing.
I've been there, I've seen it, it stinks. It's about them, it's not about us. And so I left looking for another method with which we can cheat history. And our founders gave us this wonderful tool with which to treat the real disease. And it's called Article 5. The only thing that's going to fix our country is a convention of states where we rebalance the relationship between the three branches of the federal government and rebalance the relationship between the states and the federal government. Where we limit their terms, we force the government to balance its books. That means we have to sacrifice. That means I'm on the road 200 days a year. But our country's worth it. Our kids are worth it. Our children are worth it. And our grandchildren are worth it. Come help us restore what is rightfully ours in this country today. Thank you, and God bless you. My message to you all today is we can fix every problem in front of our country, but you have to do it, because Washington will never do it. You're the leaders. You're the ones that are going to make the difference. You're the ones that are going to enthuse. You're going to activate. You're going to motivate. You're going to mentor. Leadership's about standing on principle but building consensus at the same time. And it means you take heat. You take discomfort because you know the goal for which you are achieving is worth sacrificing for. So the question for me is, the rest of my life, will I work to secure the future for the next generation? And do that by promoting a convention of states that will restore the fundamental freedoms that secure our liberty, that secure our future, and secure the next two generations.
So it's my great honor and privilege to bring up my very close friend, Tom Coburn, to award him the Lifetime Achievement.
So my charge to you as you leave here today is let's go and win. Because I believe this country can cheat history. This republic doesn't have to die. This republic can survive. This republic can achieve more than we have ever achieved before. So let's go do it.